Today we'll be making Hokkaido baked cheese tart, which is one of my favorite desserts that I've made. So let's get started. So let's start with the equipment that you need. I have a large mixing bowl here for the pastry dough and several other smaller bowls. This is going to be a double boiler for the cooking the custard. There's some mixing bowls for sifting the powdered sugar and sifting out the custard mixture. So liquid measuring cup, the dry measuring cups and teaspoons, the lemon squeezer, or juicer, I should say, and cutting board, and the muffin tin with the scoop for scooping out the custard and baking the pastry. For the materials, we have flour and butter and milks, eggs for the pastry dough and with salt. And then also a lot of these materials here for the custard as well. The egg, lemon, very important here. Cream cheese. If you have mascarpone cheese, then that is an option as well, but I didn't have it readily available. Butter and powdered sugar, cornstarch, and milk as well for the custard. So let's get started with making the pastry dough. So the pastry dough calls for 2 cups of flour, which I will start measuring out here. So 2 cups of flour and a half cup of powdered sugar. Ooh, got some flour in the egg yolk. That's okay though. We'll all mix in later. Just half a cup of powdered sugar. Half a teaspoon of salt. And I'll use a fork to mix this together to start with. And over here I have cut butter into small pieces, 2 sticks of butter. So I'll add them straight in. And this is similar to the pie dough that I make for the Portuguese egg tarts, where I'm gonna go in with my hands and kind of crumble up the butter within the flour. So I'm going to go in with my hands and kind of smush the butter into the flour. And I'm going to do this a little bit more than I did for the Portuguese egg tarts pie crust or pastry dough, just because this crust will be a little bit more shortbread-like compared to the other one. So this one, I'm just going to go in and kind of knead it in a little bit more. Alright, so this is pretty much there. What I'm really looking for is there to be no more big chunks of butter. The clumps that I'm seeing right now are kind of both flour and butter. And I also can feel that the flour has all been pretty much coated in butter. So This is pretty much ready to go. You can see that the butter has been a little bit more incorporated into the flour compared to for the other pastry dough. So now I'll add the liquid, which will be 2 egg yolks here. I separated it earlier. And I will add enough milk so that it is a total of 1/4 cup of liquid. So that's about it. And so because I'm adding egg yolks in here, the pastry dough will taste a little bit more rich, a little bit more of a cookie-like. So I like to mix this together first before adding it there, because I don't want to overmix the dough. Okay, it's about mixed. So I'll kind of pour it over, gradually mix with a fork. Turn the dough when I'm mixing to ensure it's all fully incorporated. And then I'll do it a little bit more. And the rest. So I'm going to keep going together with this until it forms the dough and it's getting really close. Alright, so now I can go in with my hands and kind of try to push this all into a large ball of dough. Knead this around. Okay. And then I'll turn this out to my surface. And what I'll do is knead it a couple times to ensure that the milk and egg are fully incorporated. But I don't necessarily need that level of layers as I needed for the other pastry dough, the more puff pastry like. This one will be more kind of a thinner cookie crust, so this is actually enough. And then I'll cut it into 2 pieces like last time and form this into kind of oval shape, oval disc. This is just to flatten it out, and it will be cut into small circles later, so it doesn't have to be a perfect shape. So now I will cover this up with Saran wrap and stick it in the fridge for at least 1 hour. This is since we needed the butter into the flour a little bit more than last time. It's you can see that the butter has softened quite a bit, so I want to make sure that the dough is fully set before rolling it out, because it'll make it easier. Okay, now I'll stick this in the fridge for at least 1 hour while I make the custard. So let's get started on the custard. The first thing I want to do is prepare my ingredients that need to be sifted, which are 3/4 of a cup of powdered sugar and 3 tablespoons of cornstarch. So let me measure it out first. This is a 1 cup measure, so this is roughly 3/4 of a cup. I'm lazy, I didn't want to measure it twice with the 1/2 cup and 1/4 cup measure. And this is a tablespoon, so 3 tablespoons of cornstarch. 1, 2, 3. Okay. And then I'll sift this together. Now that the powdered sugar has all been sifted with the cornstarch, I will get started on the liquid ingredients. So this is 2 blocks of cream cheese, 2 8-ounce blocks. If you have mascarpone cheese, you can replace 4 ounces of that with the cream cheese with the mascarpone, but I didn't have any on hand, so this is just fine. And this is a half a stick of butter, and I will add 3/4 of a cup of milk. Okay. And this will go on the double boiler until the cream cheese and butter have melted. Okay, so this double boiler, I have it on about medium-low heat, and I will set this on top and just stir until this is melted. Okay, so now you can see that the mixture is very smooth. There's no more lumps. If you do see small lumps, it's okay. We'll be straining this out, but for the most part, it looks quite smooth. So now we can add the next set of ingredients. So first thing I'm going to add is about half a teaspoon of kosher salt. I specifically want to use kosher salt for this just because it really does make a difference in that kind of salty flavor that it adds to this custard, this cream cheese and lemon custard. If you just have regular table salt, that works just fine, but it seems to me there is a bit of a difference with having kosher salt rather than regular table salt. And then after that, it's dissolved in there, I will add the cornstarch and powdered sugar mixture 1 tablespoon at a time and mix it in between each addition. So I'll add in 1 tablespoon. I'll try to mix it in as much as possible, like this, before continuing to add the next tablespoon. So I'll keep doing that until this is all added in, all the powdered sugar is added in. Okay, so the powdered sugar and cornstarch have been fully incorporated and the mixture is starting to get pretty thick. Now I can add the remaining 2 ingredients, which are lemon juice and egg. I could also add vanilla extract, but I don't have some at this time, so I will not add the vanilla extract, sorry. So here's the lemon juice and then the eggs. So I want to stir the egg in quite vigorously to try to avoid it from getting scrambled. Okay. So now I'll keep stirring this until it gets really thick. Okay, so this is now extremely thick, and so I will bring this over and strain it to get rid of the lumps. Okay, so I brought this over to next to this bowl with the strainer on top of it, and so I will strain this out. It's quite thick, so I may have to use the whisk to help me push the mixture through. So do a little bit at a time. I'll just do it like that, and then I'll push the custard straight through. And so like the egg custard, I need to put the saran wrap directly on the surface so that it doesn't form a skin as it cools. So I'll use the saran wrap and use my hand to push the saran wrap directly on top. And then I will leave this to cool on the counter for at least 1 hour and put it in the fridge to cool another 1 to 2 hours minimum. You can do make both the pastry dough and the custard 1 day in advance and have it in the fridge overnight and start putting it together the next day. So I'll see you in a couple hours. So the pastry dough has been in the fridge for a couple hours, and so now I'm ready to roll it out. And so I'll take it out of the wrapper and dust the board with some flour. Brush away the excess aside for now. And so I'll try to roll this out into one large rectangle. So starting from the center, go away from the center, up and down, and I'll turn this like that. And if it was chilling for quite a bit of time, so it's pretty sturdy. So what you can do to try to make it easier to roll out is kind of go one direction to the next, left to right, and kind of make these indentations instead of rolling it out. And that will help kind of make it easier to continue rolling it out. Like that. Alright, so I'll keep doing this until it's about 1/8 to 1/4 inch thick. So it's pretty much there. What I like to do is kind of feel around the dough to check what areas are thicker versus thinner to see where I need to roll out more. So for example, if I'm feeling it, this edge and this edge feel thicker, so I'll roll it out a little bit more to try to keep it as even thickness throughout as possible. And also may need to redust the bottom with a bit more flour as it is feeling like it's starting to stick. So back over gently. So now it's pretty much there, and I'll use this 3-inch circular cutter to cut as many circles out of this as possible. So here's one, and then I'll keep going. So I've cut out circles out of all of the first half of the dough. For these scraps, I will re-roll them along with the second half scraps to make sure I'm re-rolling it out as little times as possible. This just helps to make the pastries more even. If we keep rolling it out, the more uneven the dough tends to get. So now I'll use these dough to form it into these muffin tins. So this is very similar to what I did for the Portuguese egg tarts. So just kind of laying it down the center and slowly kind of gently pushing it in. Right, that's one, and I'll do the same for the rest. I formed 12 of the circles in this muffin tin. I have a few extra, but I will do that in form it into the muffin tins for the next half. For this set, I'm gonna chill it in the fridge for at least about 10 minutes while the oven is preheating at 400. And meanwhile, I'll re-roll the second half of the dough and form the circles as well. I've finished cutting out circles in the second half of the dough, and so what I'm gonna do while the first half it's still in the tray that I need to use, so I'll just cover this in plastic wrap and put it in the fridge while the first batch is baking. You can also put this in a Ziploc or a tightly sealed container and have it overnight in case you don't want to bake everything at once. So just need to make sure that it's tightly sealed. But since I'm going to be baking this pretty soon after, I'm just going to lightly cover it with plastic wrap and stick it in the fridge. Meanwhile, I will roll out the remaining scraps of dough from the first batch and the second batch. These are all the scraps combined, so I'll just put this together into a dough and roll it out for more circles. Alright, the oven has preheated to 400, so I'm ready to bake the first batch. The custard has been in the fridge for several hours, and as you can tell, it's quite thick. A lot thicker than the egg tart custard, just because it has the cream cheese in it. So what I'm going to do first is fill these with the custard and then brush with egg yolk that I have here. It will help make the tops more browned. And so I'll just do that, fill it with about that much. And when I brush it with egg yolk, I'll also kind of flatten it within the tart itself. So I'll fill the rest with this. Now that they're all filled, I'll brush the top with egg yolk while flattening the tops a bit. So, like that. Okay. And now I'll do the same like that, just kind of lightly dab it like that. And I'll do the same for the rest. So all of the tops of the custard have been dabbed with the egg yolk, as you can see. So I will now put this in a 400-degree oven for first 10 minutes and then bring the temperature down to 350 and bake for another 30 to 40 minutes depending on how long it takes for the top to get a little bit browned. So after 25 minutes, it looks about done, and that's how nice and golden brown the tops get with the egg yolk wash on top. So I'll let this cool and keep on baking the next batch. I'll take this out of the tray after a few minutes, maybe 5 minutes or so, and let it cool on a rack. So the second batch is completed, and this is what it looks like with the tarts all complete. So let's cut into a cross section and let's see what it looks like. Very flaky, and that's what it looks like. Delicious. Thank you for watching.